You need to forget about how much money you do or don't have. Because if you want to build a successful property business, whether you have 5,000, 25,000, 50,000 pounds in property, it'll very quickly get consumed and it will never be enough. Which is why if you want to build a successful property business, a meaningful property business or portfolio, you need to learn the skill of being able to raise finance from private investors. Essentially, the skill of being able to go out and find people that have capital that want to come and maybe partner with you and invest in your projects, which might sound totally crazy to you, but if you look at the most successful property entrepreneurs in the world, whether it's someone like Donald Trump, a very famous property developer, one of his first ever real estate projects, the Grand Hyatt in Manhattan, was actually financed by the Pritzker family, who at the time owned Hyatt hotels. They were his private investor. They provide the financing that allowed him to do the project. Or even the Candy brothers, who developed the famous One Hyde Park opposite Harrods in Knightsbridge. If you go onto the Wikipedia page of this project, you'll see that this was funded by a Qatari billionaire. And even myself, as it stands as of filming right now, we're currently under construction on over £10 million worth of property deals. And there's no way I would have been able to do these deals if I hadn't unlocked access to more capital by learning the skill of being able to raise finance and essentially find private investors to invest in myself and my deals. And so in case we haven't met yet, my name is Tyler Newman. I have a property investment and development company here in the UK. I also have a high-end estate agency business where we specialize in the marketing and sale of luxury homes across the UK. And one of the most common questions I get asked is, hey Tyler, I've got £10,000, I've got £25,000, I've got £50,000, and I want to get started in property. And my answer is always the same. And so in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what that answer is. And if you're in a similar situation where you have some money that you've saved up, but you think maybe it's not actually enough to do anything too meaningful with it, or you're a little bit confused as to where you go from here, I'm going to give you the step-by-step process. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to be focusing on in order to achieve whatever goals you have with property. And so before we get into it, I want to talk about the difference between being a property business owner and being a landlord, because they're two totally different things. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a landlord. And when I talk about landlord, I talk about the mentality of saving up money for years and years and years to eventually have enough of a deposit to buy a property. And that property might pay you a couple hundred, a few £100 profit every single month. Yes, it might go up in value a little bit every single year. And after a few years, you'd be able to remortgage it and pull some money back out. And you would have saved up a little bit more, and you take that money and buy another one. And you do that again. And after really a decade or a couple decades, you would have amassed a meaningful property portfolio that's paying you a little bit of money every single month, and maybe enough to even replace your current income. But really, the riches lie with the business owners. Now, a property business owner is someone who is thinking in terms of scale, thinking, how do we unlock the different bottlenecks, the different constraints in the business so we can grow as fast as possible? Of course, without taking on too much risk, without getting too ahead of ourselves, because there are certain risks associated with property. But how do we get to our end goal as quickly as possible? What's the most effective, efficient route to do that? And so if you resonate with that and you're someone that wants to become a property business owner, you want to play a bigger game, I want to introduce you to a concept in business called the theory of constraints. Now, the theory of constraints is this idea that the business can only grow to as big as its nearest constraint, or really another term for that is its nearest bottleneck. And so if we zoom out and we take a look at building a property business, the process of doing a property deal, we'll see that there are three key areas that we need to focus on. There are three bottlenecks, three areas of knowledge or skill sets that we need to acquire in order to grow. Now, area number one and step number one is we need to get really, really good at finding property deals. Because if we don't have any property deals, we have nothing to buy, nothing that we can offer on and try and secure. We simply don't have a business. You don't have a property business at all. So learning how to find and acquire good property deals is ultimately a skill set. It's understanding how to build relationships with estate agents. It's understanding what we call direct-to-vendor marketing. So finding off-market deals that might not be advertised yet with estate agents, and identifying motivated sellers that need to sell their property, or they're in a situation where their preference is speed of sale or certainty of sale over getting the best possible price, i.e. they'd be happy to sell the property to you at a discount in exchange for certainty of sale, or having the certainty that you can get the transaction through quickly, because that solves whatever financial or emotional situation they've found themselves in that current moment. It also means learning the skill of being able to analyze a property deal, being able to look at a deal and think, okay, well, what are the acquisition costs going to be? What are the finance costs going to be? What are the professional fees going to be? What's the end value going to be, what we call the GDV, or the gross development value of the project? Or what is the exit yield going to be? What is the return on investment, the return on capital employed, etc.? And also understanding how to make an offer properly on a property. How do we position our offer in the best possible light, even if we're not the highest offer, even if we're competing with other offers with an estate agent from other buyers? How do we give the seller, the agent, more confidence in our ability to perform on our offer and position ourselves as the best purchaser for that property? Now, the second key area is we need to understand how to fund and finance property deals. So once you've learned the skill of being able to find good property deals, well, that's great, but you need the capital to be able to acquire these property deals, because if you don't have the capital or the access to the capital to acquire these deals, when still you don't have a property business. And for the most part, this is the bottleneck of a lot of people. Now, we're blessed that we have tools in our generation, things like Rightmove, things like Zoopla. We can go on our phone, we can quickly drop a message to an estate agent, we can get access to deals. Now, it's still very competitive and there is still a skill set required and a certain level of knowledge required to secure these deals. But what I found is for most people, their biggest bottleneck, their biggest pain point is access to capital. And like I said at the very start of this video, if you're just relying on using your own money, that has probably taken you many years of saving up and putting money aside, and so you feel very precious about this money. You need to realize that if you're just relying on using your own capital, you're imposing a constraint on your growth, because whether it is £25,000, whether it's 50,000, 100,000, or even more, with today's property prices, depending on where you are in the country, that can quickly get consumed by one project, two projects, three projects. Yes, you might be able to add some value, refinance and recycle the money, but the reality is, if you want to play a bigger game, if you want to do more deals, you need to learn the skill of being able to raise finance from private investors. This is the most valuable skill that you can learn. And being able to fund these projects and get more access to capital, there are two sides to the coin. There's the side of the coin, which is you need to learn the sales and marketing process of being able to find or even attract investors. When I talk about investors, these are just people with capital that want to put that money to work. They want to see a return on their investment, and they want to put it with somebody or something that they trust, you and your potential property project. And that is a marketing process, because you're marketing yourself, you're marketing the deal, and ultimately marketing is getting the attention of a potential audience. There's then a sales process of, once you've got that attention, you've got someone that says, hey, look, I've got a little bit of capital, I'd be willing to have a conversation. You then have to sell that person or make a compelling case for them to invest in you. And this isn't no Wolf of Wall Street sales, hard closing, being some pushy car salesman. It's helping them make an informed decision. And that is presenting them with the facts and figures around what are the numbers in the deal, with compelling evidence to support those numbers. Who is the team that's involved and what's the experience of the team? Because if you're fundraising for the first time, maybe you haven't done any deals. That doesn't mean you're lacking the experience to do this deal. Instead, you're putting the emphasis, the spotlight on the experience of your team. If you have a project manager that's going to be managing the conversion or the refurbishment of the property, and they've done 20 projects just like this over the last however many years, well, that's a really positive thing for the investor. That's something you want to put the spotlight on. And so you're presenting yourself and you're positioning and packaging yourself, you're positioning and packaging the deal in a way that presents it all in the best possible light, again, to help the investor make an informed decision. Is, for the level of risk I'm taking on investing in this person, investing in this project, am I getting a return that makes sense? And so that's the first side of the coin. Now, the second side of the coin is understanding how to actually deploy and utilize and structure this money, this capital that's been committed from maybe some potential investors we've spoken to. Because think about this, if you had an investor that came to you tomorrow and said, hey, I've got £100,000 I'm willing to put to work, I can send it to your bank account right now. Do you know whether that's going to be debt or equity? Do you know what legal agreements you need to have in place? Do you understand the FCA regulations? Do you understand how to price the risk of the deal and therefore what return the investor should be getting, or what makes sense? Should that return be an interest rate? If so, what kind of interest rate? Should it be a profit share? If so, how's that profit share calculated? What security can you offer, if any security at all? Where does that capital sit in what we call the capital stack? Now, I throw all these things at you not to confuse you, but actually to emphasize the point that understanding how to go and find investors is one thing, but an equally, if not more important skill is being able to speak the language of investors, being able to show and demonstrate that you understand financial structures. Because a lot of these investors, there's different profiles of investors. They could actually be very less educated and less sophisticated, but if they're business owners, they understand these things. So it's very important that you understand how to capitalize your property deals and your property business the right way. And so if you want to learn how to raise capital and fund property deals by learning the skill of being able to find investors, I've also made another YouTube video, which is how you can build a successful property business by learning the skill of raising finance. It's going to be the first link in the description of this video, so definitely go check that out. But the third thing you need to learn is how to actually deliver and manage these projects. So if you can find deals, great. If you have great access to capital and you could wave a magic wand and you've got all of these investors lining up willing to give you money, even better, because then you can go and buy the deals you want to do. But the third thing is having the right team, the right systems, the right operations in place. And so you're not becoming a busy fool working in the projects. Instead, you're able to work on the projects. You're able to work on the business, because you can imagine if you're the one doing some of the works in the deal and you're there on site all the time, if you've got even 2 or 3 projects on the go, things can start to get a little bit out of hand, a little bit stressful. Now, I'm very fortunate. I rarely actually go and visit many of my projects on a day-to-day basis because I don't need to be there. I've got people much smarter than me, much more skilled than me, that are doing the project management, that are doing all of the different trades and construction. I'll be the first person to admit I can't hammer a nail in straight, but that's forced me to get good at building the right team and systems to help me with the projects. And so that's all for this video. But to recap, forget about how much money you do or don't have. If you're someone that wants to build something meaningful, build a property business and play a bigger game, these are the skills that you need to learn. So go and click that first link in the description, watch the video, I pull back the curtain and deep dive into the 3 different areas I've mentioned in this video. And as always, I'll see you guys on the next one.